So, you three folks, Austin, Pete, and Sarah, can you just introduce yourselves, say where you're from, and just a quick thing about you that you wrote in your volunteer form, which is how you ended up here.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Austin. I'm a senior from Hawaii, and
From Hawaii.
Yeah, from Hawaii.
Dude.
And in my bio, I wrote about how a pair of Korean immigrants came to Hawaii looking for a better education for their family, and that pair had me, and those are my parents, and that's what I wanted to talk about today.
All right, awesome, man. Pete.
Hello, I'm Peter Schulman. I'm from DC, and I was raised in England.
Raised in just England or elsewhere?
I was first Italy, and then I lived in England for 8 years.
Uh-huh.
And then I went back, and I lived in DC for the past 2.
Did you don't have any kind of British, I don't hear anything in you.
Yeah,
well, I do actually a little bit. What's that?
Everyone's disappointed.
Yeah. Can you do it, though?
No, I can't even do a fake one.
Yeah? Dude. All right, man. Sarah, how about you?
My name is Sarah. I'm a junior. I'm from Philly originally, and in my bio, I mentioned that as like a part of my experience in Philly, I went to a predominantly black school all throughout my education. Also that I've traveled a few places around the world.
Uh-huh. So thanks, everybody. Yeah, thanks. So what I want to do is I want to deconstruct what we talk about as multiculturalism, okay? And I want you, so can you go, yeah. So there are 3 things that I think about when I think about multiculturalism. I think about like my own experience. And when I think about multiculturalism, I want to talk about it in the broadest possible ways. And it's the thing with this term is it has become like it's like a buzzword, it's this word that people just sort of grab onto and they use and they throw it around, like it has all sorts of meaning, but nobody ever really stops to say, well, what does it really mean, right? And so there are 3 levels of this. One is to understand, our level of understanding of the world, our level of the degree to which we feel comfortable with other peoples, things that are different from us, whatever our experience is, and then the degree to which we can engage with. So tell us about how you would say, as best as you can, just in general terms, like how are you different than many of the people around you given your experiences? And Pete, let's just start with you.
I think I was just treated so differently growing up that it sort of made me a little weird almost. But like I was always known as the American kid growing up, like at British schools. So I think it sort of almost made me like self-centered a little, not gonna lie. Like, I feel like I'm the main character because, or like, not anymore, but like, I was a little egotistical because I was used to always being like the different one.
Well, so what do you know about, so you sit right here now, right?
Yeah.
What do you know about the world that people who haven't had an experience that's similar to yours that they don't know? That you imagine they don't know?
I just know a lot more about like the culture in Europe that people don't know about in the U.S. Like, I remember I saw on like the news the other day that like a mom bought like her 17-year-old daughter like alcohol and condoms, and like I saw on the news that like a mom bought a like 17-year-old alcohol and condoms for a party. It was a big deal, but like the UK in me, like the European in me, was like, no, that's normal. Like people like in Europe, like it's sort of like you start drinking, earlier, and like it was sort of weird seeing that and being like, wow, that's so taboo here, but back in UK, that's like normal, sort of.
So like there, you're taught how to drink by the adults around you.
Yeah, like you start drinking when you're 16 and stuff.
Yeah, which is how it should be, right? Like how many of you are learning to drink right now? And the people that are teaching you are a bunch of idiots who don't know a damn thing about drinking. You know what I mean? But you need to learn to drink from adults who have a lot of experience with it. Not that they're alcoholics, but people who are thoughtful about it, you know? So well, let me go. So Sarah, let me ask you a similar question. Like, so you went to a predominantly black school. Were there other students who were not black? I mean, beyond white and black students, other cultures represented?
Yeah, we had a few international students. I had a friend from Taiwan, other people from some Asian countries. There was one or two Hispanic / Latino people.
So let me ask you the same question. Like, what do you know about the world, or what do you think you know about the world? So it's one or the other. We can go there, right? Because, you know, you're young, right? So the things you know about the world, in 10 years, you'll realize, oh, I thought I knew, I didn't. But also, that's why I'm going to say it that way. What do you think, what do you see that a lot of people around you don't see?
I would say, as having grown up around a lot of people who are black and with a lot of friends, I'm a little bit more acquainted with like what the culture is like. Obviously, I don't have that culture, but I understand it probably to a better degree.
Well, hang on. Let me just stop you there, right? That's like a thing that white people are told we should say. Everyone is told we should say, but that's a white thing. Like, But if you grew up with the culture, you do have that kind of culture, right? It's like you're not walking in those shoes per se, but you're connected to that culture.
Yeah, I would say to some degree, but also my family, like my parents are both from the suburbs.
Yeah, I got
and
you.
like I was raised in that family, so
I got you.
still kind of have like a little bit of white culture, I guess.
No, right. Okay, so no, hang on. So what I'm actually doing is I'm like, I don't want you to get small. I want to open up this conversation about what is multiculturalism, right? And so, like, if you're up against the culture, right? And I'm touching you because it's like that. You know, you're up against the culture every day. Then that culture, there are parts of that culture. You may not do your hair a certain way, but when you know all about doing hair, as you would if you were a black woman, right? With like, I don't know, like 4C hair, let's say, right? Then but you can know as much. You maybe don't do your own hair, but you could know just as much, like, because, you know, your friends, you maybe worked on the hair of your friends or something. But anyway, okay, but go ahead. What else? So what else? What else do you see that other people don't see?
Yeah, I would say I've seen like some of the experiences of my friends who are black, like negative ones that they've had, just with other races, and I've like heard how it's made them feel and how it's impacted them. So I think I empathize a lot for them because of that.
Okay, so for you, when if someone's telling a story, like if I tell some story or somebody else tells some story about something that happens, it takes you to a place of your friend in a story that you've experienced up close. And you're like, oh, okay, it's not like some distant thing, like it happened on the other side of the world. Kind of, it's so similar to Pete, right? That story is like, nah, I get that. Those are my friends over there. That's like my friend's parents. Like, I know that woman who did that. You know what I mean? I don't know her, but like, I get that. Okay. So you're up against, you see things, it's easier for you to see and understand certain things. Anything else that just comes to mind?
Since I have traveled to Europe and I have some friends there, so I would agree with Pete about the culture there a little bit.
Yeah, you travel a lot, right?
Sort of, yeah. Like not for long periods of time, but usually a week or two at a time. And so I think I'm somewhat familiar with like the UK education system, stuff like that.
And that means what for you? Like, how does that open your mind? Like, what happens in your mind?
It's kind of cool because I can like understand the nuances of certain things, like when I read about them or when I hear about them, or if I hear someone talking about their experience, I'm like, oh yeah, my friend from over there like experienced the same thing or something like that.
And so when you say nuance, go into nuance really fast. Can you put a little more onto that?
I guess like the implications of certain things that I hear. So just like, I don't know, in terms of, say, the education system, if someone says like they failed their A levels, I'm like, oh my gosh, because that's kind of like their whole college
Yep,
blown.
yep.
And I understand the nuance of that and the emotions they're probably feeling, and like what the consequences of that are
Yep.
in a way that someone else might not.
Yep, got you. Okay. Very cool. All right. Austin, how about you, man? What do you think, what do you see in the world that, because of your experiences, right? By the way, how cool is it to grow up in Hawaii? Is it like as cool as I imagine it to be?
To me, it's not really of a flex, but like to other people, they're really interested, and I think of that because, it's like the States. Like if you tell someone, "Oh, I grew up in like Texas," and they're like, "Oh, it's pretty cool," but then if I tell them like I'm from Hawaii, they're like surprised, like I'm like from a different country or something.
Yeah. So what do you see? What do you see about life because of your experiences?
Well, in Hawaii, it's like there's no predominant like white culture or black culture. It's more of a mix of everything. I see from a lot of different point of views. I have a lot of like friends from different countries in Asia, like Thailand, the Philippines, Korea, Japan, and Hawaii is like 40% Asians, so it's mostly Asians and not too many white or black culture. And then I have like a lot of like Polynesian, Micronesian friends who they are really open-armed to inviting me into like having dinner with their families and etc. So I see a lot of. That's why like when I came to the States, I was not I knew there was a predominant like white culture, but I wasn't really used to it. But then now that I like I'm planning on moving here, I'd have to like get used to it and stuff.
So it's very different. So let me ask you this question, and this is like, it's going to sound like a loaded question, but I don't know how to. I want you to I want to try to air this out, right, as best we can. Don't get politically correct on me here, okay? Assume that for a hot minute, there are a lot of people in here who have there are a lot of international students here in the room, right? There are a lot of people in here who have a lot of experiences, but let's just speak to people who have not had the kinds of experiences that you've had, and maybe won't have them, right? Like, how are you a more interesting person, and how is your career? How is this going to impact your future, your career, this multicultural kind of this sense opening your arms up, right? We can just start with Pete again. Like how's this good? Like, what's this do for you? And what do you imagine it doing for you down the road?
I think it makes me a lot more open to new things, such as traveling. Like, I want to do study abroad, and I probably want to live out of the country for a little bit, maybe work in Australia. I always liked the idea of like going to Australia, but the one thing about sort of like growing up in Europe is like you've sort of already done it, so you don't want to go there anymore.
Yeah.
Like I've already sort of been there.
So I want to go back to something.
Or like how am I?
No, hang. I want to go back to something. You said make you open to new things. What else besides travel? Like what else do you imagine yourself being open to?
Just like meeting new people, I think as well, or sort of like I know it's different being like a foreign exchange student here than what I was growing up, but like I sort of understand what they're going through because I was an immigrant in the UK, so I think it really helps me connect to foreign exchange students or immigrants because I was sort of picked on a little for being American.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Were you were there during Obama? During Bush?
I was there during Trump as well, because I left 2018.
Oh yeah.
So they love to talk about Trump, man. I don't know what it is like. They talked about U.S. politics more than like British, man.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Well, everybody loves to talk about Trump, man. I don't understand it, but okay. So you say you feel like you're more open-minded, and how does that help you? Can anybody else jump on that? Like, Sarah, do you feel like that? Do you feel like in terms of that being?
Yeah, I think I probably do feel a little bit more open-minded than some people. I think it's a perspective that I've gained through my life experience, and I think it helps me to at least be welcoming to other people. Like, if I meet international students, like, I feel like I can relate to them, not necessarily relate directly, but like help, show that I understand their experience a little bit. Or if I like meet black students, like obviously at face value, they don't know that I'm familiar with some of their experience, but I can just relate to them in some sense, I guess.
And so in what ways do you imagine just, your mind has just opened up. In what ways do you imagine that benefiting you down the road?
I think in terms of like professionally, I guess all the people that I'm going to come across and meet, it's kind of, I guess, helped me to be cultured a little bit and like able to converse about a lot more types of things, which just like personal relations are a part of, being in a job and getting to know people. And if someone has been to the same place I have, you get to talk about that, and then that kind of thing.
Yeah. No, for sure. Look, I mean, and I can go ahead before I say that. That's cool. Thanks, Austin. How about you? Like, what do you? I saw you shaking your head earlier. Like, how?
I mean, I agree. Like, the same thing as being open-minded and being in the same position as when you first, like, if you're an international student and you first arrive to the States. I've had the same experience, like, from Hawaii and traveling to the States. Like, I was like surprised by like the amount of fast food restaurants here that aren't in Hawaii, and it's like a different culture. And but then it's like I can, as I'm amazed by being in the States, people are starting to become more interested of my culture as well. As like being a Korean, as like I feel like the Korean culture is like being on the rise, and as an exchange, like if people like start to ask me like, oh, who is this guy, or what does this mean, and why do the people in Korea do this, I can tell them like, I can explain it to them, and I feel like it's a pretty fun and fair exchange.
And what do you and what do you how do you see your life benefiting from the experiences that you had? And I wonder if you've thought, like, how do you see it, like, you know what I mean? Because here, for example, right? Let me just say this. When we're putting resumes together and Vitas together and so on, right? Like, you want to go out and you want to get a job, right? And we have this idea that we're going to go to college, and what's most important is, what's on the lines and what we've done, but there's something in between. But when you start talking to people, and I talk to lots of recruiters and lots of people who we hire lots of people. We have like 160 people working at World in Conversation, right? There's the in-between the lines. And the in-between the lines is one of these things. It's like, how interesting is this person, right? Like, how interesting are they? Like, when you put them in a room with people, with a really diverse group of people, any room, anywhere, right? And I get this from all my, 37 years of former students, right? How much are people going to want to be in that room with them? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what's happening for them? And so I want to add, I'm just trying to go there. We could just go one more round. Like, is anything right there? You know what I mean? Because, dude, listen, for you, for example, I'm not going to, can I say this? I'm not going to lie. That's the thing that everybody says. No, I'm not going to lie. But the vast majority of white people who have not spent time around black and brown people are really nervous about being around black and brown people. And this is this place we've gotten to in this world, and I don't really understand why we're here and how we got here after so many years. But especially now, it's just really hard to imagine saying the wrong thing. Unless you're a sociopath like me, who would stand up in front of all these people and talk about stuff where at any moment I could get canceled, right? And many times people have tried to cancel me just because of one little thing I say, but people are afraid of that. But you've had a lot of experiences, and the two of you have had experiences. And so you're like settled in a space, in this kind of multicultural space that you can't put into words, really. You can't really write it on a resume. It's between the lines, and it's something that people would see or feel. Somebody like me would see or feel. So I just wondered, do you have anything you would add to that? It's wide open if you just have a thought that comes to mind.
Yeah, I kind of agree. What you said about like white people oftentimes feeling uncomfortable, I guess, in predominantly black spaces. I had to get used to that, obviously, and actually, I never really realized that was a thing too much because, I mean, that was my school. Like, I had kids ask me, oh, like, do you wish you were black? And I was like 7. I was like, oh, I don't know, maybe. Like, I guess I'm fine the way I am, like, not understanding any, like, connotation or anything to that. And, like, now I would say I probably am more comfortable than the average person just in a space where I'm the only different one.
Dude, I think I'm going to speak for you. I'm sure you're more comfortable than the average person who has not had your experiences.
Yeah, and I think part of how it's helpful even is like, as I've come here and met a lot more white people, just kind of being the middleman almost for like explaining like, oh, like there's the perceived tension that you feel might actually not be there.
Yeah.
And I know that because I've been there kind of.
Yep. That perceived tension is coming from you.
Yeah,
it's not
exactly.
coming from black and brown communities.
And also that like not like me being able to do that means that like someone who's black doesn't have to do that and like deal with the whole thing of like, oh, I don't hate you, that they don't have to go through that process with someone because like, yeah, I can, I guess.
Yeah, because I got you, right? So it's like you have, and this is cultural capital, by the way. There's a term that's out, that we use. It got really popular in the world of sociology a while back. Cultural capital, meaning that like you take on, there's certain parts of one's culture that you take on that you can put in your back pocket and you can pull out at any time. And like, so cultural capital is also experiences that you have that allow you to be a particular way in certain situations as opposed to others. Do either of you have anyone want to add anything to this about like to what I had said earlier? You're good? Awesome, man. All right. Thank you. Yeah, thanks, bro. Thanks, Austin. Yeah. That's very cool.